Hi, welcome to this short video that shows how to update a Control Techniques Drives EtherCAT interface firmware over FoE in TwinCAT. So in terms of the hardware that we've got a laptop that's got TwinCAT software loaded into it. We've got an Ethernet connection to our chosen Beckhoff hardware, which in this case is a Beckhoff IPC. That IPC has a EtherCAT port configured, and then there's a EtherCAT cable connection through to our drive. And the EtherCAT interface on our particular drive, and the sort of subject of our firmware update, is the SI EtherCAT, which is then plugged into our UniDrive M700. Now, if you've got one of our dedicated servo products, so that's a product like Digitax HD M753, that has a built-in EtherCAT interface, but the steps that you will use to update the firmware are identical. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would I want to use FoE? And the simple reason is that FoE works even if you've not been able to establish any other type of connection to the drive. So for example, if you've been trying to use ADS and AOE comms with Connect and you've been unable to get the connection to establish, you should still be able to get the firmware to update and get matched ESI files and firmware so that you can start the ADS network and start full communications to the product. So it's a useful thing to have in your arsenal of tools to get going with EtherCAT. So before we really get going into the sort of setup demonstration, I want to point out that all of the videos in this series, the TwinCAT series, is backed up by at least this document, which shows how to do everything that I'm talking about in the video step by step. So for example, we're in the how to upgrade the EtherCAT firmware section, and we're following along with this section, how to use FoE to update the EtherCAT interface firmware. So if I click on that, you can see it takes you to a section that shows exactly how to do everything that I'm about to describe. So if you prefer learning from a book step by step, stop video, go to the comments section, and then there'll be a link there to this document if that's the way that you prefer to work, or even if you just don't want to take notes, to be honest with you, it will guide you through after watching the video. Okay, so let's start off in TwinCAT. What we're going to do, this is a very basic project. So in this project, you know, I've made the new project itself, I've cleared out anything that I'm not interested in being in my Solution Explorer. I'm just going to tell TwinCAT about the controller that I'm using, in this case an IPC, and then I'm going to scan the network. So here we go. Sorry, you've got to make sure you are in config mode before it will allow you to scan. Come on, there we go. Right, let's go again. So scan, click OK. And there we go. So it's gone and found our EtherCAT interface. I'm just going to click OK, say yes to scan for boxes, and I will choose to add the NC access. It's not necessary for this, but there's no reason not to, really. And click yes. So there we go. So that's the basics. Just shut these down. Just to show you from the get-go. So if you want to get to the stage where you can download the firmware, first thing that we've got to do is double click to open up the properties. You want to select the online tab, and then you want to right click on the drive that you want to update the firmware in. So we'll do that. Right clicked on there, we've gone firmware update. Second thing that you want to do, you want to change the file format. So EFW is Beckhoff's own firmware format for their devices. We don't use .efw, we use a slightly different file name, which is img. So I've changed the filter for all files, and now you can see, you know, I've got lots of different versions of firmware going back a while. So the one that I'm interested in changing to is 2005, which is version 2 firmware, which gives you a kind of an enhanced benefit that you can change between modes on the drive and you don't lose ADS comms in the process, which is quite nice. So it means Connect keeps going when you change the mode. So I'm going to click open. Then you end up with this dialog, which is the edit FoE name dialog. I'm just going to delete this string. What we're entering in here is actually the file path on the EtherCAT device for where the firmware is going to go. So in that case, our path is / FW for firmware / app. Don't put a / on the end because the download will be rejected. So I'm just going to click OK to that. And you can see the file, this progress bar down here, is loading into the target. So we'll just wait for that to finish. There we go. So that little click is the drive resetting. And it says it's succeeded. But because we've upgraded from version 1 to version 2, we need to do a kind of save basically in order to acknowledge the fact that the firmware has been upgraded, and we need to do that via connect, but at the minute we won't get a connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to delete the drive node, and then I'm going to rescan the network. Scan. I'm not going to add the ANC access because I'm just going to relink to the same one that I did before. There we go. So let's clear all of these warnings, and then I am going to, for my access, the second one seems to have added it anyway. I'll open his properties and I'll go link to IO, link it back to the IO. So that linking process happens automatically normally, but if you've been through the process of sort of setting up your scaling and setting up your limits and all of that, you don't really want to do that. So it's best to say, look, don't put me in a new axis and I'll just relink this one. So that's what I've just done. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to activate my configuration. And hopefully, there we go. Okay, so we can see that the network is now up and running. We've rescanned our network, refound the drive so that it understands the version, the revision number of this new firmware that we've pushed in. We've relinked it to our axis, so it should all be ready to go. Everything looks good. So I'm going to open up my existing Connect project, and I am going to say add drive, scan for new drives. There we go. And in my case, that's a Bluetooth drive, so I don't want that. I want this one. So this is my IPC's net ID for ADS or AOE comms, and you can see the standard EtherCAT slave node ID. So I'm going to say OK to that. And there we go. We can see that now I've been able to scan the network, I've gone online with my product, and now I can begin to work with it. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.